Now let's move into our next discussion. Now this week, a four-story building collapsed at Massey Street on the Lagos Island. At least 8 people died in the incident, while others were trapped under the wreckage.
Dr. Elijadu was at the scene of that accident.
Memories from a recent building collapse, barely 2 years ago, remain etched in the memory. But another tragedy has befallen residents of number 3, Massey Street, Odunfa. The 4-story building with more than 30 rooms gave way on Tuesday at about 2 p.m. Emergency operations continued Wednesday as officials of the Lagos State Emergency Management Agency, LASEMA, Lagos State Fire Service, the police, and the Lagos Neighborhood Safety Corps worked tirelessly to rescue victims buried under the rubble.
Fortunately, we were able to rescue 15 of the victims alive, while 5 were rescued suspected dead.
We are looking at this building from the rubbles we have seen here. This is definitely an old building that is not strong enough to withstand the weight of what is on it. If you look carefully into the next one after it, it is also another disaster waiting to happen.
I think it's high time stress test is done for some of these buildings to determine their suitability for continued habitation.
Tears, anguish, wailing as corpse after corpse were removed from the debris. Tales of woe followed the avoidable loss of lives and property. Taiwo Morili has lost 2 of her nephews. She blames the mast recently installed on the building for the collapse.
The boy that died, I brought him to Lagos. He has been with me for about 8 years. They didn't tell tenants anything as they brought the mast. We just saw it on the building suddenly. They later said they wanted to install the generator downstairs and the tenant kicked against it.
12-year-old Afolayan Wuraola and her brother survived the collapse. She's still in shock and narrates their near-death experience.
I feel scared. The shock, I can't even explain my feelings. Yesterday we just came to buy beans. So suddenly the house just as in, it's like a miracle. Everything is just dark, if not of my brother. So some people are there shouting for help. My brother saw some way to escape, so he held my hand and drew me out.
Tragic scenes like this one are fast becoming a regular occurrence in Lagos. Residents here say a lot more needs to be done to prevent a reoccurrence.
I'm begging federal government with state government, may they approve them 2-story building, don't allow them to build 3-story building.
Most of the houses in this area are very weak. They should come and check it. They should have mercy on us. When they come to mark buildings, the developer will take money to them. They will then leave the house. Please help us beg the government.
Residents say government needs to do more to regulate the building sector in the state to arrest the disturbing collapse of buildings. Dr. Elijadu, TVC News, Lagos.
Well, we have our guest right here in the studio, Akinola George. He's of the Building Collapse Prevention Guild. Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, is architect George Akinola. Need to stress that. So what is at the foundation of this building collapse? Forgive my pun.
Actually, what's at the foundation is the foundation. When you don't have proper control, when you don't have a process properly followed from foundation to implementation, you're going to have things like this happening regularly. And this is the rainy season. Foundations are bound to be compromised. And when foundations are compromised, buildings come down if they are not properly designed, if they are not properly built, properly supervised, with the right materials not used, buildings will come down.
We have seen, we've certainly talked about this thing
over and over again.
So many times. Seminars and conferences have been organized so many times, workshops of all kinds, but nothing seems to be working. Nobody's taking action as to what to do, actually to go out there. Buildings are being erected every day. Nobody's monitoring, nobody's regulating, nobody's saying, bring your plan, let me see, so that it conforms with the standards.
Well, a lot is being done, actually. I'm not holding brief for the government, But the government is incapacitated.
In what ways?
Why is that?
They are understaffed. There is no way Lagos State, for example, has over 45,000 buildings under construction at any given time in any year. And the Lagos State government, probably they have 500 members of staff. How do they go round all these buildings under construction? How do they supervise them? How do they ensure that even buildings that are already standing, integrity tests, stress analysis are being carried out on all of them? It's just not humanly possible. So there has to be a proactive action plan put in place by all the stakeholders. Stakeholders meaning the professionals in the built environment, which we represent. We represent the architects, the engineers, the town planners, the quantity surveyors, the estate valuers and surveyors, the surveyors themselves, the land surveyors, and the quantity surveyors, all of us. We form the Building Collapse Prevention Guild because we know that it is a professional thing. If you don't allow the professionals to do what they are trained to do, you will have all what you're having.
So in spite of the presence of a guild like yours, you still have buildings going down, whether it's churches, of course, remember the one that happened.
Synagogue.
Yeah, and the one in Akwa Ibom, and, you know, buildings like the one on Massey Street. What exactly needs to be done? You know, sometimes when I drive through some areas and you see that X on a building, I wonder, can I, as an individual, untrained, actually just walk into that premises and ask if they have the required documents that they actually need?
Okay.
Is it possible? Should we be able to do that?
No. You don't have the competence to ask the right questions. But I will start from the beginning.
Okay.
Don't forget that buildings as they are presently standing, some have been built over 50 years ago. Some have been built a long time ago or recently. Some have been built before planning regulations were put in place. They are still standing. So if these buildings were not at the time they were built, properly built, they will fall down at our time. Now the ones that were built during our time when building process approval was instituted, those ones too will have themselves compromised if they were not properly approved. Now the ones that have been approved to be built, not properly controlled by Lagos Building Control Agency, you know, LABCA. LABCA was recently formed out of our own pressure, under our pressure. So the pressure brought LABCA into play. And LABCA now is still understaffed to continue to control. So what we're saying people should do is this as a control prevention agency. Please call the following numbers, go to the following website, go email the following email address.
I wonder if you have those numbers.
I do have
numbers
them.
So that we can actually quickly reel the numbers out.
Yes. For example, bcpg.org, www.bcpg.org is our website.
Okay.
On our website, you can even Google what you have and, you know, locate your site or a particular site that you notice is failing. Somebody called us yesterday because we were on Ray Power yesterday. And they called and they said, look, they have a building in Surulere, a supermarket is there are cracks on the walls. We have sent people there already because messages were sent. So you can always Google, you can always send messages to all these numbers.
All right, now talk to us, when all of these things happen, from the eyes of the law, from the area of prosecuting or prosecution generally, when someone's house is crossed X, like we see most of the times, and we still see people living there, what kind of offense is that when it comes to the level where someone has to be prosecuted?
Well, according to government, X means a lot of things. X could mean, please come and show us your development permits.
Okay.
It could mean not approved, please pull down, or whatever. They know all the nomenclature that they put. But once government puts an X on a building, it behoves on government to follow up on the effectuation of that law or that regulation. When you put X on a building and you still allow people to be living inside, you're asking them to go and commit suicide. Because most buildings in Lagos State, especially in the Lagos Island, I was there visiting some 3 weeks ago, and I know most buildings on Lagos Island are sick.
It's good that you actually mentioned that. I mean, even with untrained eyes, when you look at some of those
of the buildings,
they're tilted.
So
like
there's one I saw, a story building leaning on the other one, and the other one is the one holding it, and people are still going in.
Ignorance.
Talk about the issue of quacks in the industry. They seem to have taken over completely. And then the issue of substandard materials that are being used. And how long, I'm very curious, how long should it take from the beginning, when you start building, to when you do the roofing and everything? How long should it take for a structure to be put on ground? Because sometimes it's like some buildings just go up so quickly.
It depends on the technology you are using.
Okay.
You know, you can you can put up a building in a month.
Ah.
Yeah.
Is that safe?
Of course, prefabricated buildings can be erected very fast, just like assembling a car. You know? But of course, if you are using the wet construction that we still practice in this part of the world, of course, you know, it may take 6 months, a year, depending on the volume of construction you're doing. For example, if it's one-story building, which is common here, you know, maybe 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. And then if it's a high-story building, you know, it will take, depending on the program of works and the funding available. But going back to what you said earlier, concerning quacks and who is a quack? A quack is that person who, maybe a university graduate, who is going into that profession that he's not trained for. The people that are trained for it, a lot of businessmen are in town. You know, qualified, some of them PhD holders, but they're not trained for construction. Architects are the ones trained to design. Engineers are trained to put up the structure, put up the skeleton of the building to make it, you know, stand. And of course, you have quantity surveyors who cause the building. You have all the other professionals, mechanical, electrical engineers, town planners, land surveyors, estate valuers and surveyors, and so on and so forth. 7 of us. We are trained to put up a structure. And when anybody outside this purview takes that onto themselves, that person is a quack. And we have so many of them here. And what we are saying is that if any design is produced, not signed properly by an architect, not signed properly by a structural engineer, and by Current and Acon, those are the regulatory bodies, with the stamps there, that building should not come up. But because Nigerians are always looking for shortcuts, so we have the short deaths that we are having.
All right. Unfortunately, time will not permit us to talk more about this, but there are so many issues we would have liked to touch. But Architect Akinola George, thank you very much for coming on the program.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Right.